welcome. Thank you for watching this interview conducted by Humans of Neuroscience. For those of you who do not know what Humans of Neuroscience is, this is an initiative started by Simply Neuroscience to help tell the stories of people who are passionate about their work in the field of neuroscience. And today we have Dr. Kallioniemi. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everybody. Yes, I'm Elisa Kallioniemi. I'm currently a researcher at UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas. And my background, I'm a biomedical engineer and a medical physicist. But in my research, I do neuroscience. So I would call myself as a neuroengineer. And in my research, I use electromagnetic brain stimulation. So basically, magnetic fields to modulate brain function. And the end goal is to develop treatments for psychiatric and neurological disorders.
Oh, wow, that's super cool. You mentioned that you're a neuroengineer, right?
I've never really had like a actual training in neuroscience. So my training was purely in physics and engineering, but then as I started doing this electromagnetic brain stimulation, I basically learned the neuroscience part myself, but I've never had like a major or minor in neuroscience.
So did you always have like a love for engineering growing up, or?
Yeah, so well, basically like my father and my brother are engineers. So when I was in high school, like engineering was kind of like everywhere around me. And then I also loved biology. So I always thought that like I will have my future will somehow combine these two. And this is where I end up.
Yeah. I guess we kind of covered this in the last question, but could you tell me about your brain journey? And like, you started off like loving biology and engineering. How did you kind of like weave yourself into the field of neuroscience?
So for me, basically my brain journey started in industry. So during my engineering studies, I was working in a company that developed and manufactured these electromagnetic brain stimulation devices that I currently use in my research. But it was not a conscious choice to work in this company. It was just like the first company that hired me as a student. Okay. So basically, I didn't choose to go there. They chose to hire me, and that's how I ended up there. I was just like in R&D, so I was just helping to develop the devices and to do quality assurance. But after some months, like I was just started to wonder all the time, like, what does this device do into the brain? And like that kind of questions just like continued coming to my head. In a company, of course, like job is just to develop the device, but usually the research is being done somewhere else. So then I couldn't kind of like get away from these thoughts, like what is happening in the brain? And then I basically changed jobs, and then I started my first position as a research assistant. And basically my research started with these devices that I was first developing. And from there, I basically started my PhD. And in my PhD, I was developing new methods how to use these devices. All of this happened in Finland. And then basically after my PhD, I was wondering like, how will I go from here? Basically, I had like basic mechanisms and basic methods, but like I wanted to expand my research towards developing treatments. So then I first did as like a visiting postdoctoral research fellowship at Stanford. Okay. And then that was at psychiatry. So basically I was trying to understand how these devices could be used as a treatment. And then I continued that in my current job in Dallas at UT Southwestern.
That is a really amazing journey. Do these devices that you've kept mentioning, is there a certain name for them?
Transcranial magnetic stimulation. So they're basically just like a coil, like a massive kind of like a electric wire, kind of like put in a like circle or a figure of 8. What happens is that we just put that coil on top of the area we want to stimulate, and then we put like rapidly changing electric field to the coil, and that creates rapidly changing magnetic field, which then goes to the brain. And when it kind of interacts with like the outer surface of our brain, it creates again electric field, and that electric field can induce action potentials. And that's how we do it. So it's like it starts from electricity, then it goes to magnetic fields, and again in the brain it goes into electric fields. And then that modulates the brain. So basically we kind of transfer electricity to the brain externally, and then that electricity like activates the brain, and then we use that to change brain activity or brain functionality.
So when you were like getting to the career that you are currently in right now, were there like any obstacles that you faced in your journey?
Of course, like there are a lot of obstacles for sure. Like I'm a woman, and then like I'm an engineer, so I'm not like kind of like a conventional neuroscientist.
Right.
And I also have English as a second language, so English is not my first language. So there have been numerous obstacles, but I guess, and like my CV of failures is massive. Like so many things have gone wrong, but I guess like I've always just found a way how to go around it. So yeah, I've just like, if something hasn't worked out, I've just tried something else, and then usually there has been something else, like alternative pathways. Like from my friends who are doing neuroscience nowadays, like all of their paths have been like very like full of adventures. Nobody has had like a really direct path. Like all of them have had some sort of obstacles, but like we all have ended up to the same position basically, just like different routes.
So these obstacles, and usually when you do face them, you like kind of struggle with this, whole self-confidence thing. Were there any times where like your self-confidence just like became pretty low and you had to like build it up?
How I basically survive all these like obstacles is like I've built like a network of supportive people around me. So then like, because it's usually like certain people like try to support you and certain people try to put you down kind of, but then like I always like try to figure out a way like to surround myself with more with these supportive people. And of course like it still hurts, like even though I've been in the neuroscience field for like more than 10 years I guess, it still hurts, but like I always try to maybe think about it realistically, like is it real, is this criticism real? Because in neuroscience and in research, there's always criticism, but you have to separate them. Like, is it towards you or is it towards your work? And then like normally it has been like towards maybe more like my work, and that's something like I can go around. Yeah, but it's challenging. Like I don't know what's the best. Like for me, if I have a bad day, I just have to go to nature and like relax a little bit, reevaluate the situation.
Nature always helps. It helps for me too.
Yeah.
Is there anything like about the brain that still fascinates you?
Yeah, the brain is so complex. So I don't know, like when I started doing my research, I was always thinking like, is there like enough things to study? But then like when I started doing my research, it's like there's like so many things to study. Like it's endless thing. Like the brain is so complex. So once we like solve one problem, we come up with 10 new questions or something like that. So it's like an endless game, because basically it's kind of funny in neuroscience, like the brain in my head is trying to understand the brain in my head. So in a way, it's like, is it ever possible to like even find out everything about it? Because it's like you're studying yourself in a way.
Right.
So in a way, it's challenging, and of course, like it allows me to kind of observe myself in a way. It's like an endless game, and I really love problem solving. So neuroscience allows me to solve problems, like, because of course, like research is on the forefront of information. So the stuff that we're studying, nobody knows, but it's our job to find solutions and answers to those.
Definitely right. Did you face any issues regarding any ignorance in your work or like stereotypes, etc., something like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always people who try to like accidentally bring you down or on purpose, but like, so there has been numerous things, and even like I've been on the field for a long time, I still sometimes get these. I guess like nowadays I just think that like, because I can't control those things, I just have to control how I react to those, and then I just have to like try to figure out like how to, I don't know, ignore them in a way, because there are always going to be something, unfortunately. I don't think that the world will ever be so perfect that there's not going to be any of those people around. So you just have to figure out like a way how you handle them and how they don't like take too much out from your life. You just have to like, okay, that person said that, but like it's not true, and then you just move on.
Let it go.
Yeah, let it go.
Ooh, I'm very curious about this one. How is your daily routine like in your career? Is there like specific things that always happens, or does your daily routine kind of vary when you're working?
Okay. So as I'm a scientist, most of my work is thinking and read literature, doing experiments, and of course collaborate with other researchers. So I would say that like all my days are different. Every day I have a new thing to solve. Well, not like a new thing to solve, but there are like small steps going forward. But none of my days are the same. But it's always like a combination of, well, of course, like as a scientist, I have to fund my research, and then I have to publish my research, and then I have to also do my research. So it's a combination of all these things. Like sometimes I'm doing mostly grant writing, and sometimes I'm doing mostly experiments, and sometimes it's a combination of all these or just publishing. What I really like about being a scientist is that I can control my day. So nobody tells me from 8 till 9 you do this, then from 9 till 10 you do this.
Okay.
These kind of things are like, you can't really put a time on it. It's going to take how long it's going to take. Sometimes some problems take a lot more effort than other things. I don't think like working from 8 till 5 would work for me. I really want to influence myself what I do during the day, do whatever like the problem requires me to do.
Is there like any specific research that you're working on right now?
So I work at psychiatry. So how it works is that once you do your PhD, then you do your postdoctoral research. And then that's kind of like, after that, you can either go to industry or you can go like continue in academia or something like that. Like there are lots of ways, but you can't be a postdoc forever. So I'm basically at like a senior postdoc right now. I would really want to continue in academia and establish my own research group. So I'm kind of thinking of like, what will my research group do? And one of the things like that I'm developing currently is brain stimulation treatment for psychosis. So individuals with psychosis.
Sorry to interrupt, but what is psychosis exactly?
So for example, schizophrenia.
Okay.
Yeah, so individuals that have hallucinations and stuff like that. So there are a group of individuals that there aren't many treatments available, and there are some promising findings that our brain stimulation treatments could help them. And I'm basically trying to develop a project for that currently.
And you mentioned how in your routine you sometimes have like grant writings. For those of that people like who might not know what that is, could you explain what grant writing is?
Well, there are institutions where you get like your own salary, but then you might have to find out salaries for your staff members, and those are basically comes from like foundations. Unfortunately, in research you don't get like endless amounts of money, but you have to like compete for the money. Like you have to first get an idea, and then you have to convince the funders that this idea is good for them to fund you. And then you have to write grants to get those.
Does that like require going to conferences, or are like those two like separate things?
So that's a bit separate thing. So basically in academia, there are scientists that have a solid salary, but then like you would like to hire like students and trainees. And for those, like you have to apply for funding, and then that's basically like paperwork. On paper, like you have to convince foundations to give you money. For example, in the US, there's numerous foundations. So there are foundations that promote psychiatric disorder research or neurological disorder research or something like that. And then you have to basically send those documents to them and convince them that like your research is awesome.
Okay.
For them to give you funding to hire all these students.
You mentioned that you, in the future, you want to lead your own research team into like specific research questions. Is there anything else in the future that you want to do?
Well, of course, like I really like mentoring students, and that's of course like part of my research group. Like I really feel that neuroscience needs more diversity. Like we need more people from different kind of backgrounds, because of course like the problems are so complicated. So if people like who would have all the same backgrounds would be solving them, we would never solve them. We need like fresh minds. We need people with different perspectives, people with different backgrounds and stuff like that. So I really hope that I could at least do my part in getting those individuals to do science and neuroscience.
Is there an individual you work with that has like a background that you might not expect for them to work in neuroscience?
Yeah, so I think like that's one of the biggest like misconceptions in neuroscience is that we're all just studying neuroscience, but like I actually only know maybe a couple of persons who have just studied neuroscience. Like a lot of people come from engineering, computer science, statistics, even ethics or physics. Neuroscience is also like complex things. So for example, like if we develop a treatment, you need somebody who can do the clinical things. You need somebody who can do the ethics. You need somebody who can analyze the data or like statistics type of things. If there's, for example, some modeling involved, you need computer scientists. Or if there's new equipment that needs to be developed, that's an engineer. Like there are so many things that are involved. So neuroscience, it's not like all neuroscientists aren't originally neuroscientists. Okay. So yeah, I mean, there are so many people who are doing different things. And nowadays, I feel like the field is going towards more computational things. So a lot of new computational individuals are coming to the field. So definitely like neuroscience is not like a single path. There are so many different things.
Yeah, like what you mentioned, the work there, it's like very diverse. And I think a lot of people, when they hear about neuroscience, they kind of assume, oh, you have to take like STEM courses like bio, math, engineering. But like that's not exactly the case as what you've been mentioning.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many specific needs. Like it just depends on the project, what kind of skills we need to solve these things. I mean, there are of course like problems that you need only neuroscientists, but like it usually helps when there are other people involved as well, because they have slightly different perspective to the problem. Because usually there aren't just a single solution to a problem. There's usually several, but then like it just depends which one of them are the best or the most feasible or most useful. And then like, yeah, you need diversity in the people's backgrounds for sure.
Is there a way that you got yourself ready for a challenging career in high school?
At high school, like I didn't really think of becoming a neuroscientist. I basically just thought that like I will do something that is associated with engineering, physics, and biology, but like I didn't have a specific career path in mind. So I was just a very regular high school student. All I thought like I will just go to university. I guess like that was as far as I could see my future.
I don't know about like anywhere else in the world, but like in the US, it's so pressured that you have to like take the most advanced classes in order to get to the best university. But that's how like the environment kind of is. But I hope like in this way people realize that, you know, your high school doesn't have to set up with the career that you want in university. It could always change.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, like I was in industry originally. So I never even thought about going into research. I'm from a very small town originally, and both of my parents, they weren't university educated. My father was an engineer, but he was like from a lower level technical school. So I wasn't really exposed to research or science. So that's why for me, like, I guess I was thinking of going into industry because I thought that that was the only one available. And then like I was probably already like ending my master's when I started doing my research. So before that, like I wasn't doing anything research associated or thinking about really research. It just came in the end.
I always like to end with this last question, but what advice would you give to students considering neuroscience?
So that's a very good question and to end for sure. I would always say like be open to possibilities and find your own path. I know of course like everything's competitive, but like now that I'm kind of like I have survived several obstacles, I feel like all the people around me, none of them had a direct path. Like they all had all sorts of things happen to them, but we all ended up to the same place. So just have curiosity and passion for what you do, but find your own path. For example, like if all your friends do something, you don't have to do that. Like if you don't want to, you might still get to the same position. For me, for example, like I didn't get to my current position by being unhappy or sad. Like I've always done the things that I enjoy, and I haven't done like what my friends enjoy. but I've always found my own path. So I would say that, like, yeah, be open to everything that happens because life isn't something that you can plan every step. Things are going to change for sure. And new possibilities might come all the time.
That's like the interesting thing about life. Just like things can come in when you least expect it.
Yeah, of course. And if you plan too carefully, you might be blind to those things, even though those might be like the best things ever.
Thank you so much, Elisa, for taking the time to be interviewed by Humans in Neuroscience.
Thank you for the invitation. This was so much fun.